What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. We filter all of our conversations through the man box, where we unpack how as men we are expected to act in society, how fighting the authentic human experience is exhausting and damaging, and how mindfulness can help. Now, on to the show.
All right, brother, here we are again for the season finale. What is that? The end of season 2, Men Talking Mindfulness. Jon McCaskill coming to you from Colorado Springs with my brother from another mother, Will Schneider, New York City. Hey, today we're going to be covering a lot of stuff. First off, though, we're going to be covering our mindfulness and fatherhood. We're so excited to get into that. We're coming from it from two different aspects. One, mine as a father of 2, soon to be 3, and Will as a soon to be someday father, and as a son. We're both sons, so we're going to be tackling that as well. That aspect of fatherhood as a child and what that's like. Before we do that, though, we're going to kick it off with the grounding practice. We didn't discuss this before the show. Will, who wants to lead it? You want to run it?
I'm going to flip it. I'm actually going to legitimately flip a coin, John, right here. Okay, what do you got?
Let's do it.
What do you got?
Do it. I'll take heads.
Okay, that one went on the floor. Hold on one second. There we go. All right, heads. All right, you're
heads.
Up, John. There it is.
All right.
There, heads.
All right, perfect. Appreciate that. And I believe you, brother. I believe you. All right, so here we are. Let me just put a caption on just so people know what they're tuning into when they get over here. Anyway, yeah. So again, thanks for joining us. Jon McCaskill here in Colorado Springs, and I will run you through our initial grounding practice. That's how we kick off most of our shows. If you haven't tuned in before, kick it off with a grounding practice, get us settled, get our audience settled, and then we wrap it up also at the end of the show with a grounding practice. So if you are comfortable doing so, go ahead, close your eyes. Otherwise, just soften your gaze, soften your focus. You can be seated for this. You can be laying down. You can be really in any position that's comfortable for you. And then just bring your attention to, let's focus on our physical sensations right now. Let's bring our attention to our feet and feel them grounding us into the earth, really bringing us to this moment, the here and now, feeling the earth below our feet, whether we're seated, whether we're laying down, whether we're standing, and feeling that connection with the earth, feeling that connection with Mother Earth, and then also that connection through the earth to everyone else here and now. We are all connected in some form or fashion, and that connection is so strong. You can feel that truly as you imagine it and visualize it, that connection to the earth, and then that connection to our fellow humans. And not even only our fellow humans, but every being here on this planet, in the here, in the now. Feel that heaviness in your feet, feel that connection, and then scan up quickly from your feet, through your heels, calves, shins, knees, up into your quads, hamstrings, sit bones. Just feel anything in these spots. Don't feel a need to change it, just notice it moving up into your lower belly, lower back, upper back, chest. Feel any tension, any pain there. Feel your heart beating in your chest, up into your shoulders, from your shoulders out into your hands, from your hands moving back into your arms, arms all the way back up to your shoulders, into your neck. Notice any tension there. If you've noticed your mind has started to wander, just gently bring it back to the here and now. What it is we're doing, we're in the neck, moving from the neck into the base of your scalp, moving all the way over the top of your scalp, into your forehead, your eyes, your temples, your jaw. Relax that jaw. And then to your mouth and nose, and notice the physical sensation of breathing in and breathing out at your mouth or nose. And let's wrap it up with one last deep cleansing breath. Begin by breathing out all your air together. Breathe deep down into your belly, chest, and relax, letting that go nice and slow, slow, slow. Now, invite some movement back into your body. And if you had your eyes closed, go ahead and open them now. Otherwise, just refocus your gaze. And here we are. Will, brother, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jon. Thank you so much for that. It's good to be back, and it's good to have everybody out there that's listening, whether now or later. Always excited for the show. A little amped up sometimes for the show. I was kind of rushing to get to the show today in some ways. Like, there's a lot going on here in New York City, and but it's a pleasure to be here, and also to be alive in this city. Things are starting to open up. It's kind of exciting to see the city kind of come back to life. So feels good. It feels
that must
good.
Be wild, man. That must be wild.
That's
probably a mindful moment in and of itself.
It very much is. I mean, to see, it's just odd with because there's still kind of some trepidation. Like, are we doing this? Are we going to hug? Are we going to handshake? Are we fist bumping? We're kind of like having those like nonverbal like moments amongst people. But yeah, everything is good, and it's thanks, man. It's good, really, really great to be here again.
Awesome,
for sure.
Awesome. Well,
and thanks for that grounding practice. I definitely needed that.
Yeah,
and as we're sitting in that grounding practice, as you told us, and I just want to share this to everybody, as you told us to ground our feet, right? When I grounded my feet, all of a sudden, got a little nervous for the show today. I was like, I heard the word in my head, trust. Just trust. Trust my work, trust my homework, trust all the work I've done over there, trust the show, trust, and just really be in this space of like, here we are. So I don't know. That was coming up for me during the meditation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, man. Awesome. And I love that. Trust. I mean, trust one another, trust the process, trust the show, trust the universe, right?
Right. Trust all the work we've done, all the work individually, how we do on the show. It's like, I think that's like there's a beautiful reminder in that moment for me. And as soon as that came in, I was like, oh yeah, I got this.
Nice.
I mean, it doesn't matter what happens. We got this. So thanks,
right,
Jon.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't matter what happens, and we're live, we're uncut, unapologetic, raw, and authentic, right? And we've done a show on authenticity, and that's what the beauty of the show is. We're human, and we're not here being robotic, pre-recorded with teleprompters up in front of us. It's raw and authentic, and I love it. I love it. So. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about, again, mindfulness and fatherhood. We'll eventually do a show on mindfulness and motherhood, and then another one on mindfulness and parenthood. And there's a lot of overlap. But specifically today, what we wanted to talk about as men is mindfulness and fatherhood. And in our research for the show, we do a little research on each show. We ended up both looking at the same article. And one of the things that really jumped out at me from this one article from Mindful Fathering, there's actually a quote: "Mindful fathering is the act of consciously checking into your life as a father." I mean, that's what mindfulness is consciously checking into your life all the time. But mindfulness specifically as a father is consciously checking into your life as a father. It's about staying present in your life as a father, observing the dreary, the ugly, and painful parts of fathering with acceptance and non-judging, and honoring those parts with our full attention, just as we honor the wonderful and sublime moments of fatherhood, rather than numbing ourselves out of our lives through substances, technology, and boredom. And I know I'm guilty as a mindfulness teacher. I'm guilty of this. I will quite often numb myself with my phone at home. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but
I'm going to go time out right there, Jon. Yeah, I'm going to time it right there. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. We're going to do our mindfulness moment, Jon. Like, right?
Yeah. Well,
that's why we have each other, Jon. That's why we have each other, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off. I was like, okay, I'm going to let it flow. You know? And then we'll come back.
Thank you. So,
no, I mean, right.
These
moments are important. Yeah. Go for it. You want to jump in? You want to go? Yeah.
I'll jump in, man. My mindful moment for this week was actually last night, and it had very much to do with the time at home with my children. I was frustrated. I'm not going to get into details about why I was frustrated, but I was frustrated with something going on in the house. And we've got a lot going on right now. We've got people painting in our house. We've got new fences going up for horses. We've just got a lot going on, as everybody does. And I'm not saying I'm unique in that situation, but for some reason or another, I was frustrated. It had been a long day, and I got up on the couch, and my kids, my 4-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son, started jumping on me. And I was just like, you know what? This is what it's all about right here. They started jumping on me, climbing on me like I was a piece of playground equipment. And, I started tickling them, and we all just started laughing. And I came out of that, I don't know, maybe half an hour just playing, which we're going to get into in the show as well, but just playing as a father, but also just playing as a human being, right?
Right.
And how that made me completely forget about all the other crap that had been bringing me down. And then when I took a step back after that, I was like, that wasn't even worth being frustrated over. It wasn't even worth it bringing me down over. Not only was it bringing me down, but it was bringing my family down, because it trickles down from me into the rest of the family, the kids, my wife, my beautiful bride, who I adore. And, it was making the whole situation kind of toxic. Whereas the kids brought me back to the moment. And that's another thing as a father, the kids can often bring you into that mindfulness. So that was my moment for the week, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to talk about that. I mean, so what also is happening there is not just the joy of the kids, but they're like bringing you into this in the present moment, right? Which is really important. But that sense of play, what does that do, neurologically, biologically, hormone cocktail, right? You're upping your dopamine level, right? So you naturally begin to, raise your consciousness raise your vibration into, a greater state of joy of just being more connected to the moment and your kids. And, and it's no surprise, Jon. I mean, like, as we begin to unlock and study more of the science here in the show and talk about more of the science, and as the scientists study and bring more of the science, it's like, oh my God, like, we need these moments. Right. These moments are so important, and it's awesome because this goes right along into the conversation, about parenting and fathering today, which I'm excited to talk about. But my mindfulness moment of the week, I'm actually, and I say this and I laugh a little bit because I know hopefully my mom listens to the show one of these days. But like, so I'm actually, I'm going to do an ayahuasca ceremony Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Nice. And I'm actually going to sit, for, 2 nights, potentially 3 nights in a row, which I've sat 4 other times, only 1 night each time I went, but at like different times, like, months separated. But in the process of that, I'm working through a 21-day dieta, which I'm on not like a really, really, I guess kind of a strict diet. Like, my diet is usually pretty good. So I'm not eating any, really reducing my meat almost to nothing by the time I get closer to that moment, which I don't eat a lot of meat anyway. I've actually been off. Coffee is not part of that dieta, but I'm not drinking coffee. Like, I've actually started drinking decaf now, and then within a week I'll have no coffee at all, like no caffeine in my diet. And that's a choice of mine. But also no cannabis. which I definitely enjoy. Some cannabis. I'm not going to call it the W word.
Yeah, we're professionals here.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe my mom doesn't know what that is, so that's cool, right? So I definitely enjoy some cannabis in the evening sometimes, So like I've been off any of that kind of stuff, or alcohol, which I don't really partake in, but I definitely have, alcohol here and there. So for just the last 5 days, it's like, whoa, it's like, my evenings are different, it's like, so I started experiencing some headaches. I knew it, like, cause I've done this before, usually like day 5, 6, 7, I usually start getting some headaches cause you're kind of moving through some withdrawal in some ways. So I started experiencing like a headache yesterday. I'm like, oh my God, like my body's been probably the cleanest it's been in like, a year or something like that. But yeah, it's actually, I love really challenging myself with that. I mean, the experience in the ayahuasca ceremony, we're going to, for our listeners out there, Jon and I are really excited to bring on some experts to talk about psychedelics, and how they can actually really change our who we are in the world and how we do things. I'm so excited. And there's so much amazing, again, like really great research out there, that has been kind of not kept from us, but like these amazing tools for our own transformation, like mushrooms and, cannabis and ayahuasca and MDMA. Yeah. Psilocybin, that's the mushrooms, right? So I'm really excited to go and do this work.
Nice,
but these 3 weeks is like really opening me up to my habits, and how I typically might do things. And then it's like, so what do I do instead? And then how do I feel about that? So that's been just a really, I really enjoy this part of the ayahuasca ceremony, which I'm going to hit, in not like
nice.
15 days from now or something like that. So yeah, it hasn't been that much of a challenge. I mean, but it might be a challenge this weekend or next week. But so there you go.
Well,
but that's my
awesome,
little mindfulness moment of the week.
And I'm reading a book called Stealing Fire right now, and it's all about achieving higher levels of consciousness through different modalities, and it's just mind-blowing book. And actually got it recommended by a LinkedIn user, a LinkedIn connection with me, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I hadn't read it yet, because it's right in line with everything that I practice out. It's mind-blowing. But yeah, all the psychedelics are mentioned in there, and definitely plan on doing my own journeys soon through that. Got to get through baby number 3. I don't think Becca would approve of me saying, hey, I know we got baby number 3, but I'm going to go take off on a couple of psychedelic journeys here. You got the babies? But soon.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
So going back to what I was talking about in the mindfulness and how we often try to numb ourselves. We do try to numb ourselves. It's almost an addiction, right? Going back to that dopamine that you talked about is our addiction to these phones and social media and just checking out. And I am guilty of that myself. Again, I'm a human being. Even though I practice mindfulness and I teach it, there's still times that I get sucked into that phone and social media. And my daughter, who's 4, will come up to me sitting on the recliner and grab the phone, pull it down, and be like, "Daddy, put your phone down. Come play with me." Which is basically essentially what happened last night, and it got me out of that funk that I was in. So it's pretty amazing how the little ones can bring us into that mindfulness. And yeah, man, I'd love to hear your thoughts as a son. In the fatherhood childhood relationship on what living mindfully in that relationship looks like.
Thankfully for mindfulness, like I've it's really helped me change my relationship to my parents, to my whole family in a lot of ways. And what's really like the biggest moment for me, like as a son, having a father, having a mother, but just like speaking of fatherhood, so speaking of my father in this case, it's like, just really understanding that he's done the best he could, with where he came from, with his upbringing, with like all of his experiences and stuff like that. And there's no like, there's no, I mean, definitely not back then. There's no like handbook for great fathering, and in the process of him, right? No, right. Not back. Exactly. But in the process of just becoming more mindful with this and just getting into a place where like, my father did the best that he could. It's like, I just, I lost my train of thought for a second. I'm watching these comments over here for a second, Jon. I'm sorry. And I'm trying not to stay
Your
focused
father did the best that he could.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he did the best that he could, and like, and in the process, that's it. And thank you, Jon, for bringing me back. In the process of him doing the best he could, that's how I know he loves me. I know he loves me. I mean, we talk all the time, like, definitely once or twice a week, checking in with him, how he's doing. And that's like, and honestly, that's kind of his generation in some ways. He's a good man. Like he was definitely in that provider role. One thing about my dad, and I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about doing more of this work for more people, right, and for more men, is my dad was in that old school generation of like, boys don't cry, like showing the, anger, dominance, controlling, all the things we learned about this confined masculine roles. Is like kind of, my dad is definitely in that box, in that column. But honestly, no fault of his, because all the other men around him, right, and were doing the same thing, and they were just kind of following suit. And here we are, like, part of mindfulness and part of who we are as human beings. It's like we're a product of our environment, and now,
and so many are still doing that.
Right. Of course. I mean, because they're raised by their fathers, like I'm 48, so like we're talking like a few generations here as far as like fathers. But if you look back, so what about you, Jon, as far as like your dad and your relationship with him?
Oh, well, my relationship with my father is, I mean, I see him as my hero. We've connected on multiple levels, mostly on the intellectual level, but as of late, or more recently, we've definitely started connecting on a more emotional level. I think he's seen what we're doing. Like, he actually watches the show. He may be watching right now. I'll see if he comments. But hey,
Mr. McCaskill, what's up? Yeah. I'm Will. Hi.
Oh, they love you, man. My parents adore you.
But, oh, cool. Yeah, so, hope to meet him someday. I want to meet him someday.
For sure. We've definitely had our differences. I mean, at times there were political differences, and there were emotional differences, whatever the case may be. Sorry, I'm staring out the window as I'm watching a police. It looks like a policeman funeral. A whole bunch of policemen motorcycles just passed by, so honoring that. Anyhow, a few years ago, he and I did a trip across the country together, 5 days, driving from one point to another, and I had it mapped out. We saw tons of stuff, did a ton of stuff, and I think that was one of the big changes in our relationship. Our relationship has never been bad. I think we just had standard father-son frustrations at a point, but that really, I think that trip really helped us to bond on another level as fathers. Like, at the time, I had my daughter was 2. Or maybe had maybe just over 1, actually. Anyhow, the bottom line is, he and I did that as fathers, and we talked about fatherhood. And it wasn't just the son-father relationship, but it was 2 fathers talking about what it's like to be fathers. And I think that was a huge, huge thing for us.
What was part of that conversation, if I can ask, Jon? Like, what was if you want to share a little bit, what was part of that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was imparting our experiences to our children. A lot of it was his experience growing up, like you had mentioned, in that day and age, what his expectation was as a father and as a man, and then just being in nature. Like, we stopped at the Garden of the Gods, which is just down the road from where I live now. But at the time, it was part of the cross-country journey. We stopped there and walked around. We drove to the top of Pikes Peak. We stopped at St. Louis and went up in the Arch and just experienced the here and now. And a lot of the time when my father and I talk, it was, hey, what's going on in the stock market? What's the weather doing?
Yeah.
What
like data?
What can I do professionally? Yeah, it's all stuff that's going to happen down the road, stuff that's happened in the past, and not a whole lot of right here and right now. But that trip, though I didn't call it mindfulness with him, there was a ton of it, and we experienced the here and now. And I think that comes full circle to the conversation that we're having here. Is the mindfulness that we experienced together, again, without explicitly calling it that, allowed us to bond, and it allowed me to have compassion for him in who he is, his experiences. So that's I think that was the crux of our relationship becoming what it is today. So that's beautiful. That's that. Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's no. I mean, I'm glad. Thanks for sharing that. And you really mentioned a key word that kind of hits me is that compassion. Like and also another thing about parenting and my dad, it's like I'm not going to change him. And I've stopped. And this is a big lesson I learned about 10 years ago when I was doing some work with Momentum Education. It's kind of like Landmark, but it's like another thing. Great organization, Momentum Education. I highly, highly recommend their work. And they really made it clear. It's like, you're not going to change your family. You're not going to change your parents. Right. So instead, it's like, how can you be more with them? Right. And that compassion piece, what does compassion bring? It brings up listening. It brings up more understanding. It brings up more vulnerability. It brings up more authenticity. All the things we talk about on the show on a regular basis. Right. So then I get to actually practice in my family. Right. Which is so important because those are sometimes the most difficult relationships. Right. And then learning from those relationships, I'm better with you, Jon. I'm better with other people in my life. I'm better with more people in New York, my students, because I'm learning how to be with my parents instead of trying to control things, tell them what they're doing wrong or change them in some ways. And, like all those things that as a younger man, I just didn't understand. It's like, why don't they meditate, or why don't they go out for a run? Why aren't they doing more of these things that would make them happier? Like that didn't work. And I would get resistance. I would get yelled at, and I was like, I'm just trying to help, but it's a different relationship.
For sure. And I'll tell you, as a father, you truly do start to appreciate your parents' points of view a lot more. Like as a father now, I want to be that provider and protector for my children, right, and for my whole family. And that's the masculine role that we've talked about. But I also, over and above that, want to be the playful father. I want to be the adventurer. I want to be the nurturer as well. But there's definitely like a primal instinct to provide and protect as a father in my family. And now, granted, I've got my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, but I've also got my 18-year-old niece living with us.
Right.
And she's probably like, now that she's living with us, she's probably like, and as a matter of fact, Ryan Sen, he's my 18-year-old niece's stepfather, and basically really more so the father than anyway, but he's here with us today. Anyway, she's living with us, and she knew me before she lived in the house as Jon the uncle, right? But now I feel almost as though I've taken on a fatherhood role with her living in the house, and I want to protect her as an 18-year-old. I want to make sure she's getting to and from work. I want to make sure she's safe getting to and from work. I want to make sure she's getting to and from school. But I'm also like, I'm telling her, hey, you need to clean up. You need to do this. You need to do that. And she's probably like, wow, you're not the cool uncle that I remember. You're kind of an a-hole. but it's the role that you kind of take on as a father. I feel that I'm actually learning a lot having my 18-year-old niece live with us. I'm learning a ton. That's going to make me a better father for my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old when they're older as well.
Well,
Um,
and also, I think, Jon, let me just jump in. I'm sorry, but you're
yeah,
also doing this for her when you're like, hey, clean up your room, make your bed, do your dishes, right? Like you're
yeah,
doing this for her. I mean, there's and there's
exactly.
again, I'm not a father yet, but there's a firmness that needs to take place, through coaching and fathering and that sort of thing, right? But also that sense of compassion as well, and then you find that yin and
Right,
yang balance, and also at the
right.
same time, you're looking out for the rest of your family, Jon. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
you can't have
absolutely.
one, weak link in the chain, right? Everyone's got to kind of be on board in order to create like a real home, like a home that is harmonious, where everyone
Right.
could be themselves, and which brings out more joy and all the wonderful things that a family can be. So,
Yep.
like, good on you. I
Absolutely.
mean, I know you know this, but I'm just like kind of reiterating for the audience, because those things are necessary.
Right.
Structure is important, in anybody's life, and especially, as you're growing up, structure is going to help you. Like, I love that idea of within discipline, there's freedom, right? And
Yep.
it's like, if you have discipline where you're like, I don't have to make my bed every day, Jon, but I do, right? My mom, I didn't make it when I was a kid, or I fought my mom all the time, but it's like, but I have like now my mind is more free because things are
Yeah.
more organized. So, but that's kind of another topic, but
No,
uh,
absolutely. And hey, add that to the list for future topics, man. I love it. But you're
yeah.
spot on. And you hit the compassion piece again. Um, Something that I talk with my 18-year-old niece that's living with us as, hey, when we do have a chance to talk, because she's super busy, she's going to school and working, and when we see one
Mm.
another, I'm like, I don't just beat her up about, hey, do your dishes, do this. I'm like, hey, what is difficult about this for you, right? So I want to understand her point of view before I jump jump onto the kind of the strict and structured robot or fatherhood role. She does. She tells me, she's like, hey, you know what? This is a new experience for me. I've never lived away from home. I've never lived outside of my house. I've never lived outside of my city, which, when I say city, I use that term loosely. It's a kind of a large town. I don't know, 35, 40,000 people.
That's exactly what
Uh,
my town is. Yeah. Same
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Small.
so,
Yeah.
and that's, so she's going through all these experiences too, like new culture, new home, new city, new job, new school, a lot of this. And I have to be compassionate to that. The whole reason I tell you all that
Mhm.
is understanding as a father your child's point of view and having to look through their eyes and see what it
Cool.
is they're experiencing. I think that's critical in fatherhood. As a matter of fact, really quick,
Right.
while I'm talking compassion and emotional intelligence, I want to give
Yeah.
a plug.
Keep
I want to
keep
give a
flowing,
plug here,
brother.
man. Yeah. So this is something, Teresa Larson, a good friend of ours, and the head
Yeah.
of the 21-day mindfulness experience that we're doing together, you and me, Will.
Yeah.
Um,
Plug it.
she sent this to me, or at least identified it to me, called Ninja Life Hacks, and it's all about developing emotional intelligence in kids. So this box has like seven or eight little books in it. I'll pull one of them out here. This one's Inventor Ninja. All right. This one is Angry Ninja, and it talks about what being angry is about, what that looks
Wow.
like. It's a phenomenal little series. So Ninja Life
Yeah.
Hacks, highly suggest for any, I
What,
won't just say father, any parent trying
right.
to teach their
Right.
kids about
Well, let me
compassion.
ask you, Jon, why is emotional literacy important? Emotional intelligence in
Mm,
kids, like why? Like, let's why is that?
yeah. Well, I think it's important for a huge number of reasons. One, you understand where your parents are coming from, but two, you also understand where your friends are coming from, why it
Yeah.
is they're experiencing, and then you can be supportive and compassionate
Mm.
to your friends, your classmates. I mean, my little girl's 4, right? And she had another little girl come up to her in class the other day and say, "I don't like your hair," and she came home really sad about that. And
Mm.
that hurt my feelings. Like, my little daughter, to me, she's the most beautiful thing in the world,
Oh.
right? And to hear some other 4-year-old had come up to her and said, "I don't like your hair," and that, sure, okay, the fact that she said it, that's not that bad, but the fact that my daughter was hurt by it,
Right.
that hurt my feelings.
Mm.
And the initial instinct was, I'm going to go tell that other 4-year-old little girl about her hair. Ludicrous, first of all. But
I'm going to go Navy SEAL on her ass.
Yeah, exactly, right. But my wife and I sat her down and we're like, okay, why do you think she said that? And she was like, because she doesn't like my hair. And I was like, well, maybe she's sad because your hair is pretty and she was having a bad hair day as a 4-year-old. I don't know. And then I said, well, maybe she's upset because somebody has told her that same thing. And we said, you know what, tomorrow, tell her I still want to be friends with you. And she did that. My 4-year-old did that.
Wow.
Hey, like she went up to her in class. At least this is reported. I mean, this is what my 4-year-old is telling me. My 4-year-old said, went up to the other girl and said, hey, I still want to be friends with you. And they played together. And you know, all that stuff is behind them. So I think emotional intelligence, teaching them at a young age, allows them to be effective and functioning adults in society and leaders in society later. So it's important to teach those emotional intelligence, the emotional recognition of what others are going through. And then, and, I mean, it comes full circle. I don't know how many times we can say the word compassion in one episode, but it helps to develop that compassion.
I don't think we can say it enough, Jon, on this show.
Let's just say it 100 times. Go.
We probably will by the end of the episode. But also it's like, so not just, but it starts with the self too. Because I can understand anger and jealousy and all these other feelings that we all have on the inside. And therefore, so if there is a moment where, you know, so just imagine like maybe a few years from now, same thing kind of happens. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I don't like your dress. You know, if someone says your daughter, your daughter, instead of being like, oh my God, like, you know, and just getting all upset about it in some ways, can be like, oh, wait, well, maybe she's just having a bad day. That has nothing to do with me, right? And how powerful is that? Like she's not being affected in her day, in her schoolwork. It's not have this ripple effect. It's not she's not even bringing it home because it's rolling off her like Teflon. Yep. So it's so important. I mean, amazing. I'm so glad Teresa has brought this thing. This what's it called? Ninja Life Hacks.
Yeah.
And
I see Lindsay put that in the comments.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Like, if you're curious. So
thank you, Lindsay.
So I also want to talk about kind of shifting subjects a little bit. I mean, still on mindful fatherhood.
Yeah.
Is specifically how mindfulness has changed my relationship with my children. We talked about my relationship with my father. We talked about that with your father. This is actually something I tell quite often in my teaching of mindfulness, is when I noticed that mindfulness had shifted my perspective on things. And I think we've even talked about it on the show before, but I want to reiterate. When my daughter was born, she was, you know, I don't know, 3-4 weeks old, in the middle of the night, you know, a baby getting up crying. And I would go through to feed her when it was my turn and give her her bottle. And what I was thinking about as I'm holding this beautiful little miracle in my hands was what I had screwed up the day before or the week before, or what I had to do at work the following day or the next week. And I would kind of stew on all that as I'm feeding this baby girl. And then I would go and lay in my bed, and rather than falling back asleep, I had spun myself up into a kind of a frenzy. And so I would just lay there and get terrible sleep the next few hours. When I started practicing mindfulness, now she's like, I don't know, 3 months old. And I go through to give her a bottle. Excuse me. I go through to give her a bottle. And what I was focused on was her in that moment, her beautiful little miracle in my hands, reaching up and grabbing my hands, making the little noises that she's making, hearing her breathing in the middle of the night because it's dark. And that's what I was focused on. I didn't care about what I had screwed up the day before, the week before. I wasn't thinking about that or what was coming the next day at work. And then I would go back to bed after putting her back down in her crib. I'd go back to bed and I would fall back asleep. Wow. So the mindfulness changed my presence and my ability to enjoy that present moment with my daughter that now is 4 years old. And, you know, before before I know it, I'm going to blink and she's going to be that 18-year-old niece living somewhere else. And if I don't live in the moment and enjoy that moment, it's truly going to feel as though it's passed me by. So I have to enjoy those moments and really cherish those moments. Otherwise, life passes you by. So,
yeah. Well, I think then why don't that kind of like brings me segues, or I want to segue into what gets in the way of being more present in parenting or even in relationships, but definitely parenting, right? And what can we do about it? And you mentioned technology earlier. Yeah. And, we're reading this. I was reading actually an article, I think, in the Huffington Post. I think it's here, and I think it could be, and we can talk about, I think I don't have any kids. Like, I'm just here alone, so, but like having rituals where it's like, in the morning, say everyone, they talked in this article, everyone's getting ready for school and rushing around. And they also talked about in the evening, it's like, no technology, for a certain amount of time, so you can be present as a family, right? Yeah. Which is like, I think really, that's like, because the technology is just kind of dividing us, ripping us apart in some ways. Because and then we're not only just a distraction, but what's coming through that screen is like trying to always tell us, who we're not and who we should be, right? Yeah. Which is creates a lot of stress, creates a lot of anxiety, changes relationships. You know what I'm saying, right? And so, and here's your daughter. I mean, I love that you opened up with this mindful moment. She's like pulling your phone away. Daddy, play with me. Right. And I think that's like, and that's just such a great, moment. It's like, and that play with me could be anything. Daddy, listen to me. Daddy, it's like, I need your help, instead of like missing those moments because, we're texting back and forth, Jon, like nonstop.
Right. Stop texting me, Will.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jon. All right, Jesus. But you just tell me the boundaries and I'll follow them. Okay.
But honestly, I mean, also what's the impulse or the thought in my mind is when I receive a text that I need to respond back instantly, which is not true at all. Like, I know you are on the other side of the country, texted me. You are truly not expecting a text back in the next 3 seconds. No, I could delay that response, right? There is nothing so urgent between so many of us in this world that we have to be on our phones or on some form of technology all the time. And my daughter and both my son and daughter go to preschool, and I pick them up 4:45, 5 o'clock, and they're normally in bed by 8. So that's 3 hours in the evening, right? 3 hours that I get to play with them, get to spend with them. Can I completely sign off for 3 hours? Hell yeah, I can. Absolutely, I can. But in my mind, I tell myself, oh, I have to stay connected to the various entrepreneurial things that I'm plugged into. But none of that is going to fail because I'm putting my phone away for 3 hours. None of it is going to fail for that. And that is, adult FOMO, fear of missing out. I've got a friend, Seth Hickerson, that I work with at my state of mind.
I talked to Seth. I love that guy.
He's great.
What a
fantastic.
What a guy. Right? What a guy.
We'll have him on the show at some point. But he has the acronym for adults rather than FOMO is FOGIT, FOGIT, fear of getting in trouble. As though like we feel that we're going to get in trouble from our boss or our colleagues, our coworkers, if we don't respond to them instantly. And we have to draw those lines. There has to be a division. There has to be almost a blessing to, like, as a boss, as a leader, you need to tell your people, hey, my expectation of you is not to respond to emails at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night. My expectations of you are to respond to work when you're at work and have some type of clear boundaries there. We could go on to that all day long. That's another whole conversation, but there's definitely distractions there. But you're also right. In a lot of the time that you're connected to your phone, you're connected to social media. And a lot of that time when you're on social media, it literally chemically affects your body. So you're releasing the inverse. So you don't have the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin that you get from in-person relationships, right? You get all the cortisol and the adrenaline, and you get all the negative,
the sympathetic nervous system hormones, right?
Exactly.
That begin to jack us up. Life is a threat.
Right.
I gotta defend. I get easily frustrated, right? I'm in my, I'm jacked up. I'm in, really jacked up, and oh my God. And I want to also mention, if someone really demands your time like that, Jon, right, that you need to reply instantly, then you might want to think about that relationship again.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If I can't have a conversation.
Yes, thank you. That's probably better. That's compassion. Yeah. Thank you, Jon. I'll say it again.
Well, just setting those expectations.
F this guy.
Yeah, just set expectations, set those boundaries, and maybe have some way of, hey, if something is truly urgent, then you can get to me on. I've got my phone to where I have the driving feature. I've changed the wording to the driving feature so that if I receive a text when the driving do not disturb is turned on, it doesn't say, hey, I'm driving. It says, I'm either with my family or I'm focused on something other than my phone. And if it's and then it says, if it's urgent, reply with urgent, and then my phone will ding, even in the do not disturb mode. So sweet. Maybe that's another little trick that people can employ for getting off of their phones, but still being tied to work if they absolutely need to do that. So absolutely. I also want to go down another path in being a father. A lot of the time, going back into those roles of provider, protector, conqueror, we neglect ourselves. We neglect ourselves. We neglect our own physical health. We neglect our own mental health because we're putting others as a priority. We're putting I believe that we should still do that. I still believe that we should put our families as a priority
somewhere.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? But I also feel that you should make yourself a very high priority, if not number one, because if you can't take care of yourself, you're going to not be able to take care of your kids. It's that old the oxygen mask in the airplane analogy, right? Hey, if you don't put the gas mask on yourself first, then you're not going to be able to oxygen mask. You don't put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then you're not going to be able to put it on your kids. So it's just like that. If you don't take care of your own mental health, then you're going to be a mental wreck at home. If you don't take care of your physical health, you're going to be a mental wreck at home. So you have to take care of yourself there. And in order to do that, you have to be mindful of where you're putting yourself in that priority stack. So I wanted to make sure we talk about that.
Well, what are some of the things that you do in that regard, Jon? I mean, you're a father, you're having a third kid on the way, so what does that look like? I mean, this is like sharing with our audience, what does that look like for you? What is the structure? What are the things you do, please?
Well, I will admit my physical side has dropped off fairly significantly, and I'm going to make. I've told my beautiful bride that next week I'm kicking it back in. I'm getting back into the gym, and I'm going to start eating better again. And there's always that someday thing. You know what? Now that I'm doing this show, I'm doing it today. I'm doing it today. Forget that someday thing. I'm going to do it today. Yeah. So
nice, Jon.
But the other side is I wake up early before the kids do, before my wife does, before the whole house starts to wake up. I say house because we've got dogs, we've got horses, we've got chickens. It's truly it is a literal farm out there. But I wake up early, somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30 every morning, so that I can have some quiet time by myself. I intentionally do some Bible study. I've actually tied up with a friend who I do Bible study with, and that's for me mentally and spiritually. Then I'll do a meditation somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes every morning, and then I have my coffee and I just sit there in silence for a minute to just set myself up for success for the day. Otherwise, I feel like a fellow SEAL, also Academy grad, friend of mine, Rob Brinzer. He says that if he doesn't have that quiet time in the morning, he feels like he's getting shot out of a cannon right off the bat. And is that any way to go through your day? I mean, if you feel like you're getting shot out of a cannon first thing, the rest of your day is a mess because you're playing catch up or you're trying to calm yourself back down. If you start off calm, you're going to be better throughout the day. Yeah. It's a fact. You're going to be more focused. You're going to be more present. You're going to be more compassionate. How many times is that for the episode? 67.
I think, I kind of 68, John. I think you're off.
I have some compassion, man. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Okay, 69 or maybe 68. I don't know.
Anyway, so that's what I do for my morning routine, and now I've got to get back into implementing some physical side to that. Implementing some yoga, like Dan Nevins came on, 3 or 4 episodes ago, and talked about how that is part of his morning routine and how important
even just
that is.
15 minutes. Yeah.
So that's that.
Well, I think 2 things I want to say on that. To any fathers listening out there that don't have this routine or having trouble getting the routine, and we mentioned is like, get it. Maybe have another father that get an accountability buddy, get an accountability father, and be like, hey, all right. Can we stick to 30 minutes? Right. You know what I mean? Create discipline, that's just the way Lindsay and I teach these companies to really get deeper into mindfulness. We have an accountability system we try to put in place. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And so if you're like, because I know, John, if like we were doing something together and we were in it, we are doing something together, but like have an accountability structure in the sense of like, okay, hey, what are you sticking to? Right. And then like texting in the morning or the night before and be like, hey, you're going to do your workout. You're going to go for that run. Or you're going to meditate. Right. That is definitely up your game, like tremendous amount of success. Another thing I want to say is like how much of a better father and husband and chicken feeder are you when you are grounded? You know what I mean? Like, and then also how are you leading your children and what are you showing them? Right. By putting the mask on yourself first, right? And taking care of your own needs, right? To be able to show up more presently for your family. They don't know all these things, like they're just kids, right? But like, and what are they learning? I think that's something I have in the notes here. It's like, how in fatherhood, like, if you're stressed out, you're on technology all the time, angry, frustrated, run around raging like a lunatic all the time in your house, angry and yelling at everybody. It's like, that's what your kids are learning. And that's what we're going to do out in the world. Right. So how, they're sponges. I mean, unbelievable. Like, I mean, my 3 brothers and I, like my 2 brothers and I, and we're very different people. We talk exactly the same. Like, that's how, like, I use that as an example of the sponge. It's like, we have the same cadence, the same tact in some ways. Like if I put you in the phone to one of my brothers, John, you'd be like, is this Will or is this someone else? So like using that, it's like, so like, let's talk about that a little bit. Like if you're showing up more mindfully, more calm, more conscious, more compassionate, hit it again, John. Like that's like, how are your kids going to be in the world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are that sponge, and that old saying, do what I say, not what I do. How well does that work out? It never works. People see you as an example, and they're going to follow your role. Right? Yeah. Right. They're going to follow your role. They're going to follow your lead as parents. They're going to end up doing a lot of the same things that you do. So it's, I think, living mindfully, practicing meditation. If they see that, if they see you starting the day off by being calm, then they're going to be calm. If you get shot out of the cannon and you go into their room, granted, okay, I'm speaking as a father of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So my perspective is probably slightly different than fathers of 18, 15-year-olds, but there's some commonalities. So I guess where I'm going is, if I get shot out of that cannon and I'm all amped up, my sympathetic, the fight, flight, or freeze nervous system is in full swing. When I go into my little 4-year-old's bedroom or my 2-year-old's bedroom, they're going to be amped up. They're going to feel that energy. Not only are they going to see it and model it, but they're going to feel that energy. So I think it's critical. And then the other piece, as they get older, and going back to, my 18-year-old niece, something that we're trying to make sure is that they are very aware of who they're surrounding themselves with, their friends, what their friends are like, what their friends are doing, making sure that they're not surrounding themselves with people who are going to take them down a bad path. And I think that by teaching our children, so living mindfully is fantastic, but teaching them either by example or actively to live mindfully and practice meditation, then they can be more aware of who they're surrounding themselves with. They can be more aware of what path they're going down because of the friends they're surrounding themselves with. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah.
And when I talked about living mindfully, but I also talked about actively teaching meditation, I'm going to take another opportunity to make a couple more plugs here, man.
Go for it, man.
I brought in all these props today. I want to make sure I get them all in. So this is another great series. This book is called "The Elephant Who Tried to Tiptoe," "The Fish Who Searched for the Fish Who Searched for Water," "The Hug Who Got Stuck," and "The Dad Who Didn't Know." And they're all published by the Conscious Bedtime Story Club. And
there you go.
Yeah, each book, each story starts off with, I don't know if you can see that, snuggle breathing. And you go through, hey, I breathe for me.
That's so
I
adorable.
breathe for you. Yeah. And then at the end of every book, there's like another meditation or explanation. So those are powerful ones. To actively teach meditation. Another couple ones, sitting still like a frog and breathe like a bear. Those are great ones. And then if you don't have the time to read a book, there's this whole man. I live and breathe this stuff. No joke. I didn't
obviously. I want to do the bear breath, Jon. I want to learn the bear breath. Yeah.
Hey, well, maybe we'll do one of these things. So this is a set of cards called Imagine meditation cards for kids, and it starts with a breathing exercise that you do together, and then it has a whole bunch of different meditations. So this one is the singing birds. This one is the healing hands. And you can read those with your kids and really teach them not just living mindfully, but the act of meditating, taking an intentional pause to meditate. And that's the end of my plugs there. But I think these ones are phenomenal. And I mean, even if you don't have kids, if you're wanting to meditate without your phone, I mean, so many of us have guided meditations, right? That we download an app. And I support that. I mean, I've got some meditations that I've recorded for some of these apps.
Yeah, same.
But if you don't want to have your phone because it's a distraction, then potentially these cards, some of these books, you could use yourself. So going back to that beginner's mindset, acting like a child, right? Hey,
right.
There's no shame in buying meditation cards that are made for kids and then using them yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think look, I think it's I think one thing I want to say, Jon, it's like, because you mentioned earlier, like when my kids are younger, so it's like it might be a little easier to kind of implement or kind of jump in because they're just younger kids, or like bring mindfulness into the family. But I had a thought, like if it's like if your kids are older, like say they're young teens or or tweening or something like that, and you want to implement mindfulness into the family, right? It's like, so where does that start? And it could just be, again, coming back to another one of our principles on Men Talking Mindfulness, it seems like, is like vulnerability, and just going to your 13, 14-year-old son or daughter and be like, look, daddy needs your help. Like, I just want to actually have a better morning, and I'm wondering if you can help me, and just jumping right in and be like, look, because I want to be calmer. I want our house to be more calm. So maybe we can do this together, and maybe we can work, and you have an accountability kind of system with the kids or something like that. So you have more of this harmonious, or maybe you begin to set those boundaries around technology. So it can really start. And again, it's just getting vulnerable, being authentic with where you are, being mindful of those things, and then having a plan and asking the family, right, to put that plan in place. And there's going to be struggles. You're going to want to go back to your old habits of doing things. But like, do you make a contract? You put that contract in the refrigerator and saying like, hey, hey, we talked about we're going to do this on Wednesdays. Like, so let's do that together. Or we talked about we're going to have this 30 minutes of no tech, and we're just going to talk about what we're excited for the day or something like that. So there's all these opportunities of from vulnerability and authenticity and communicating in a very clear way and being very intentional about the things that you want to bring into the family in that regard, that there's opportunities everywhere that you can implement mindfulness regardless of how old your children are.
Right. And you just have to be mindful of where you can implement mindfulness. I mean, if you're not paying attention, if you're continually sucked into your phone, social media, tech, whatever, you're not going to miss you are going to miss those moments. You're going to miss the moments that you could be mindful and teaching mindfulness to your children. Well, man, we're coming up on an hour. This show
Oh,
is flown by, and there's just so much. And I know we've got a twist for the audience here.
We do? What do you mean, John? We have a twist? I don't. What are you telling?
Season finale. Today, season finale, but we're going to go ahead and continue talking for another hour or so. But it's going to be on a season recap. And then this from here is going to roll into a separate podcast episode. But for the show today, we're just going to keep rolling because we would do another whole episode next week. But baby number 3 for me, where my wife, us, is due very soon. And we don't want to delay this. So we're going to end season 2 today here on video, but continue with season 2 another week past this on the podcast form. So before we get into that, do you want to do one of our closing practices, Will? And then we'll transition into the second part of today's episode.
We have a part 2, John. This is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, so all right, we're gonna close with another grounding practice, and this is something you can do with your kids. This is something so simple that you can do with regardless of how old your kids are, or with your family, or by yourself wherever you are. So find that seat again. Maybe sit a little bit differently if you want to stand up, or if you're walking around listening on podcast or whatever, or if you're driving in your car, this will work too. And we're just going to do a very simple triangular breath just to help ground us. 3 parts. Right, we're going to do 5 rounds. We're going to inhale for 5 seconds, hold that breath for 5 seconds, exhale slowly for 5. We're going to repeat that triangle 5 times. So get to your seat, find that seat if you're sitting, and ground your feet, or make contact with your hands, or bring a hand on your belly, your hand on your chest, just to make some more contact with yourself, so you really get to know that you are here and now, and it's the only time it ever is. And we'll just start with a nice little exhale, eyes open to close, your choice. Let it go out the breath. Great. And as big as breath you can, take a big inhale for 5, but slowly. Inhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holding 5, 4, 3, 2. Exhale easy. 5 through the nose. 3, 2, 1. And keep going. Inhale 5. Hold. Exhale 5. I think I messed that up. That's okay. Good. Here we go. Inhale 5. Hold that breath for 5. Exhale 5. Keep going. Do a few more rounds. Inhale for 5. Holding. Exhale 5. Good. 2 more. See if you can drop the breath in the belly as you inhale for 5. And then fill into the middle of the chest, all the way to the top of the chest, and hold that big balloon in your torso for 5. Exhale slowly through the nose. 5. Very easy through the nose. 3, 2, 1. Last round. Inhale 5. Holding gently. Exhale 5. Good. And just bring both hands over top of your chest for a second, and just take a moment and just check in emotionally. Just again, coming back to this emotional literacy, emotional intelligence. And part of that practice is just checking in how you're feeling right now. No judgment. Just be with what is. And just take a moment of gratitude and thank yourself for listening and showing up today for this podcast. Jon and I really appreciate it. And we'll finish with one big giant breath in. And gently exhale, however you like. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Jon. Thank you, everybody, who's out there.
Yeah.
I think what's happening next, Jon? I feel like you're going to surprise me.
I do, man. I meant to mention this book specifically ties in directly to what we discussed. First of all, thank you for that ground and practice. That was fantastic, man. And even if you did screw up a little bit, hey, compassion, grace, hey, it was perfect. It was exactly what it needed to be when it needed to be. So
thank you.
This book is called The Dad Who Didn't Know, and it's also part of that Conscious Bedtime Story Club. But it ties in specifically because this father in the story thinks that he needs to know everything, and he starts beating himself up for not knowing some stuff, and goes into a deep depression, and then realizes, this ties back into that self-compassion that you finished that meditation with. He realizes, you know what, I don't need to know everything. I am a father, and I love my children, and that's what I need to know as a father. Anyway, I thought that was a great one, and I meant to mention it specifically, or call it out specifically, and thanks for just giving me a second to do that.
No,
but
absolutely.
yeah, as we wrap up this show, we're going to continue here on the video, but as we wrap up this show, I just want to again thank the audience today, thank the listeners for the podcast, and then if you like what Will and I are doing, please go down the Apple Podcasts and give us a shout out, give us a review, give us a rating. We'd love that, and it really does mean a lot to us. It helps us to really promote the show as well. So that's that. Unless you
hit up our
else.
Facebook, mentalkingmindfulness.com. We have a Facebook group as well, Men Talking Mindfulness. So thank you for being part of this community. And we try to be as active as we can. And being responsible as well with our responsibilities, and not getting tied too much in tech. But so thanks again, Jon, for another, I felt it was an excellent show once again. Thanks.
Thanks for joining Will and Jon on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family, and please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.